Welcome to the Roost Podcast, brought to you by Buckeye Bowhunter. And now, your host, Josh Grunt.
What's up, dude?
Nothing much, man. Running around like a crazy man.
You can tell my background's different. Oh yeah, packing and got your truck back. Got your
one stick.
Got a big gift in the mail today, right?
Christmas come early, my friend. Christmas come early.
With you?
What's that?
You have that thing in your room with you? Where's it at?
No, it's out in the truck.
Oh, all right.
It's out in the truck, all packed up.
We'll unpack it. Yeah. What do you think about that buck? Could you tell very well in the photos?
For whatever reason, you're like older Tacticam. It's I don't know. The pixels aren't very good, but I can put the two of them together.
I think he's 4.5 or 5.5 because I have a bunch of pictures of him from last year, and he definitely had like a gut, like a suede belly.
Okay.
And he was a big deer. That was the buck I was trying to get Bryce on because I knew he was an older deer. He just has bad genetics. Like he's not
right. Yeah.
So I think
his tines are real short.
I think he's at least 4.5, maybe 5.5. He might be like one of those like 8-year-old deer, but he's doing the exact same thing as last year. I didn't realize it was the same buck. For all you listeners joining us, thanks for joining. We're just talking about probably my number one hit list buck. I just got more photos of him. I had pictures of him all summer, and then he disappeared for like a month now. I haven't had pictures.
Yeah, a month.
And just today he popped back up. I got pictures of him on a camera. I haven't had pictures of him yet on a different part of the farm. And then I got pictures of him getting up out of his bed at 7:30 this evening down there where I know.
Ooh, he's back.
He's back. And what's crazy is last year, the photos I was getting of him, he was coming from that same direction. So he's always bedding down in there. Like that's his bedding spot. So, and then
that's awesome.
I ended up getting pictures of him all through November. He was like the homebody, So I hope I get a shot at him.
Exciting.
Man. He's a cool buck.
Very cool. Very, very cool.
But thanks for jumping on here. I figured we'd just jump on and kind of recap my week real quick and short, and then kind of talk about what our plans are for Kentucky. So for you listeners, the background's different. I'm in a different state. I'm down in Kentucky hunting this week. And John's, like we were talking about, packing and getting ready to head down tomorrow evening, right?
Tomorrow evening, I will be en route heading south.
What time you get out of work?
That's debatable.
Yeah, don't say it.
As soon as I can.
Nice. Yeah, I'm excited for you to come down, man, because it's been pretty eventful, I guess, compared to last year. So last year when I came down here, it was like in the 90s every day. And even in the mornings, it would be like 75 degrees, and the movement, there just wasn't a lot of deer movement. Even in the evenings, I think I was down here 5 days. In 5 days that I was down here, I probably saw less than 10 deer total. And
okay.
Not to cut ahead, but like Monday night, I saw 10 deer in one sit. So pretty sweet.
Now, is it the movement, or are you in the right spot or better spots?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with the weather. So a cold front hit, like perfect timing on Friday night when I was driving down here. And woke up in the morning and it was like 45 degrees. And like we talked about in our last podcast, as much as I wanted to just go jump in a stand somewhere, I spent pretty much the entire day just scouting. I slept in until, about 7:30, got up, drove out to this piece of public I want to hunt, and put on like 6.5 miles. Marked a ton of stuff. What I've kind of noticed is the acorns are just starting to drop. So some trees look like they're like kind of just now starting to drop pretty consistently. Other trees look like they're holding acorns and they haven't really dropped anything yet. The red oaks tend to be dropping the most right now, I would think. And there's a lot of oak trees that I found that had 0 acorns on them. So that could be a good thing. I think, because I think by the time you get here and maybe like middle of the weekend, a lot of those red oak trees that are loaded that I have marked should be dropping by now. So we can talk about it, but like, I marked this tree and I marked that tree. John, and we'll split up, go check, and I go check and, find the tree that's dropping and set up, and hopefully there's sign there and see what happens.
Yeah.
But Sunday night, I ended up. So I don't know if we talked about it, but I like this early season. If the acorns aren't dropping, the only other thing to really focus on, like a destination food source, is beans, right? And this piece of public that I'm hunting has beans on 2 sides. But the north side where there's beans, the beans are actually probably a half a mile from the public line. So they're kind of far out there. There's a bunch of hay fields and stuff in between. But that doesn't mean deer aren't bedded on public, and they'll easily walk that far, I think, to get out to those beans in the middle of the night. But on the south end of the property, beans butt right up to the property line. And that's the spot I had circled. I hunted that a couple times last year. There was a ton of sign in there last year, but there was also a bunch of hunters in there last year because I was like late to the game finding that spot. There was cameras in there, all kinds of stuff. And this year, my plan was I'm going to scout all day, find a bunch of places for me and John when John gets down here. This is Saturday. But this evening, I'm going to go put the stand on my back and just walk into that area and, find sign and set up on it. Well, I pull up there, and it was like 2:30, and there's a young kid there, probably 25. His name was Hunter, oddly enough. Good name for a kid out hunting.
Coincidentally.
Yeah, from work. And I ended up talking to him a little bit. He's a really cool kid. He was really into, the whole mobile hunting thing. He was carrying a Novix on his back and all this stuff. He had a pretty good setup and all that. And he had been parked there since like noon or 1 o'clock. And that was his plan, to go up there and hunt those beans. And he beat me to it. So we talked and everything. And, I said, I'm not going to bother you. You go see how good you do. And, when you move on, maybe I'll jump in there after you or something. So I ended up switching up my game plan. And there's a beaver dam probably, I want to say like 3/4 of a mile upstream of that bean field. So I told him where I was going. I went way around and went way up the gully and got set up on this beaver dam. And he was set up down on the beans. I saw, I think, 3 or 4 deer that night. And then, but no bucks, just does. Nothing was close enough to really shoot. And got down, met back up with Hunter at the truck, and he said he didn't see anything. He bumped a doe when he was getting out, he thinks, and had a hunter walk in on him too, trying to get to that spot. And we talked about that a little bit too, because people listening to this podcast might find this spot, but it's literally like the most obvious place you would want to set up for like an early season hunt, like as close as you could get to Ohio. So anybody coming from Ohio, that's going to be like the first spot they see. And it kind of proved true. Like, unless you're there at noon on opening day, you're probably not going to get first dibs on that spot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we talked a little bit, and then we kind of talked about our plan for the next day. He wasn't hunting mornings. I was, I'm going to hunt as much as I can. He had like an hour drive from where he was staying. So he was like sleeping in the mornings. He'd drive out here, scout all day. And he told me like what he wanted to do is get in there deeper the next day, just get a little further up into that swamp from the beans. And I was like, good luck, man. I'll you got it. I'll go somewhere else. I'll find another place to hunt. No problem. And I ended up going around and hunting an acorn tree that was actually dropping pretty good on a completely other part of the property, like way away. And we exchanged numbers, and that was the night. So that would have been, what was that? Sunday night. So it was Sunday night. I saw like 10 deer and bunch of doe.
And that was the night. That was the night where it was getting really cold at night.
Yes.
That was a 44-degree night.
Yep. There were deer moving like 2-3 hours before dark. So I'll talk about this spot a little bit. So this is the spot where the beans are pretty far out from the property, from the public, but there's a lot of really good bedding and there's a lot of topography. Without giving too much away, there's a big hillside that comes up and it's real thick and a big ridge system. And then there's like an old like clear cut or something that's like just thick. And I remember scouting it during the rut last year. There was a ton of scrapes and buck sign and stuff in that thick bedding area. And then up on that ridge, there was a ton of buck sign too, which tells me, does are probably bedded there at least part time of the year. So, if that's bedding and the food's out there, I got to get in between them. So I ended up walking in from the parking lot, kind of cut in real early, like way before I got to where I wanted to hunt, and worked my way up this drainage with the wind in my face. You know what I mean? Pick a tree, because the thing I'll say, John, like the sign is like very subtle, and the deer trails are like, the deer trails look, I don't know how to explain it. It's not like in Ohio, like deer trails, you can tell like they're fresh or something, and there's fresh tracks and down. These are like trails that have been there for 100 years or something. Like they're like cut into the hillsides. You know what I mean? But it's like so dry up on the hills. There's like no fresh tracks or anything. So I found deer trails, and there was an acorn tree. I just kind of stood in this big drainage, and I just listening, and you kind of see where all the squirrels are, and you're just listening, and I could hear acorns dropping pretty consistently. So I got pretty close to there. There was a bunch of deer poop everywhere. There was some fresh poop, and set up. And like as soon as I got set up in the tree, maybe 15 minutes went by, and I look over, and there's like 4 does. Oh, here comes Parker. Hang on, we'll pause a second. Where were we? So
setting up on the acorn tree.
Yeah, I set up on this acorn tree, and not 15 minutes later, I looked down, and there's like 4 deer coming out of that thicket, headed towards the beans, about 100 yards away on a different trail that I actually walked across. I thought about setting up on that trail. And then about maybe half hour later, here comes 2 more does right over the hill, stop at that acorn tree they were eating. I had a 12-yard shot at the one doe. Like I could have smoked her 10, 15 times. Those 2 does came through, and then there were like 3 other does that came through, another doe and 2 fawns like later that evening. Just constant deer movement pretty much coming from that big thicket that I was talking about earlier with you before the podcast that I want to kind of get into, headed out to the beans. And then that hunter kid texts me about like 7:30, and he says, I shot one. And I'm like, and we had talked about, if one of us shot one, that's why we kind of exchanged numbers. he was all the way down here from New York. I'm down here from Ohio. Like, probably need some help if one of us shoot one. And essentially, I was like, yeah, I'll be there as soon as it gets dark. I'll bring the deer cart. I'll help you get it out. And so I ended up getting down probably a little touch early because I was kind of excited to go see this kid's deer. And when I was like tearing my stand down, I just hear this whoosh, like 20 yards from me, up the hill from me, just takes off running. One single deer, heavy deer sounded like, which probably was a buck, I'm thinking. And but who knows? It could have just been a single doe. But so that kind of bummed me out, but I ended up hunting there again the next day, which I'll talk about. But drove around to the other end of the property, met up with Hunter, and saw his buck. It was a beautiful, like 125, 130 inch 8-pointer, still in velvet. And he ended up shooting it further up that drainage, kind of like we talked about. And the deer he wasn't sure where the deer actually came from. He thought the deer came from the bottom, but he never really saw it, and it came in like following two does. So because we were trying to figure out like where these bucks are bedded. Are they bedded up high? Or are they bedded down low? But it was still thick in there. If you would have seen where he shot it, it was like, I literally was like, what? Where was your stand, dude? Like, you were in there somewhere. It was like dark, so I didn't really get a good look, but it was thick, man. But yeah, it was a pretty cool little experience. Helped him drag that out, which was definitely tough, to say the least. Broke the deer cart, fell in a few holes, got pretty wet. But we ended up getting it out, and I got home, got to bed by like 1:30, something like that. And then,
wow.
Yeah, I was tired. So then that was Sunday night. So Monday, like, I'm working while I'm down here too. So Monday I ended up sleeping in, and I worked all day, and then went hunting Monday evening. And I went back to the same stand by the oak tree and saw 4 does that evening. But that was it. And I ended up hunting again the next morning in the same stand, left my stand in there because I had to work the next day too. So I wanted to make it a real quick hunt so I could just get in, see what happens. So I gave that a third set, and the third set in the morning, big stinker, saw 0 deer. So I probably burned that spot, or it's just not a morning spot. I'm not sure. So then what would it be that evening? I ended up working till like 5:30 or something. It was a little too late to go hunting. So I decided just to drive out there and do some more scouting. And this is what I'm really excited about. So Saturday, when I was scouting, John, there's this one little corner that butts up to this fallow field, and there's kind of a power line and some swamp and some other things going on. I found a really big track, like a really big 4-finger track coming out of that fallow field into the swamp, which tells me it's probably a morning setup, right? He's coming from food to bed. And then when I was talking to Hunter and we were kind of comparing where we had scouted and what we had found and everything, he had found a big 4-fingered track in the same location, but a little further up from me, I think is what he was explaining. So that kind of made me think like, maybe this is like a consistent movement, right?
Yep.
And when talking with him after he killed his buck, he's like, yeah, I was thinking like maybe that buck's bedded back in here. So if I didn't kill something tonight, I was going to go over there and kind of scout. He said, you should go check that out, I think. And I'm looking at him like, that makes a lot of sense. Like if I was a big buck, I'd be bedded back here across the access path with the wind blowing in a certain direction so I can smell trucks and people parked between me and that bean field. And so Tuesday night, this story is probably very difficult to follow. It's been a long day, guys. But Tuesday night, I went into that location and scouted. And dude, I found like some badass spots. I mean, big tracks.
Ooh.
Did I send you some pictures? Like
Not of the tracks.
multiple 4-finger tracks, like tracks as big as my
Dude,
hand.
four finger tracks that's a big deer.
Yes, as big
It's a
as
big
my
deer.
in these creek beds. So like this real thick, gnarly stuff, but all these creek beds are dry but they're like kind of able to take fresh tracks, they're not like bone dry. But the creek beds are like wide open. And there's like, so you can walk in on this creek bed, pop up on the bank, climb up a tree, and your shooting lane is the creek bed. Like it's pretty
Gotcha.
little setup, dude, and it's super thick. So you got to kind of pay attention because I think when they pop out, it's going to be like, oh shit, where'd they come from? You know what I mean? But I think I think that's going to be a really good setup for a morning because I think he's bedded back in there further, right? Because I bumped some does out when I went in there too, and everything I've seen and read and hear from people is that layered bedding. You got does out front, and the bucks will bed further back. So if that's where the does are bedding from the food, you could assume the bucks are a little further back. So I think if we get in there and maybe like double team that big flat on a morning sit and try to catch one of them bucks coming back from them beans to bed, that would be, I'm very excited about that, dude. Like I haven't seen sign like that on this public yet. Like it was destroyed with like, it looked like cattle crossings, like cows crossing these creek beds, multiple locations. There's like 4 or 5 crossings that I found. So it's pretty cool because there's like the access road and then there's like this impenetrable, like deep watery, like swamp, pond, lake thing. So it's like a big pinch point, and they're kind of forced to travel this way. I think it'll be a really good spot. So I'm excited to try that out. But I'm excited for you to come down here, man. I got pins galore. We got so much strategy and stuff to talk about when you come down here and just and figuring it out.
No, I'm ready. I had I don't know, anticlimactic preparation. I had to have my truck in the shop. My one stick didn't come. Like I said, Christmas come early today. I got my truck back and got my one stick and all my goodies. So I've been feverishly packing and putting it together. I guess better late than never. Ideally, I would have liked to have everything packed last week, but hey,
yeah, what are you gonna do?
I'm coming.
The one stick. What are you gonna do about the one stick situation?
I'm gonna make it happen. You're gonna make it happen, buddy.
You're an athletic guy. I got, but I still think I'll hang something for you for Friday morning, just so you're not.
That'll work. And I think in the middle of the day when we have some downtime,
practice.
I think we practice, team up. I think doing the one stick, for an evening sit is going to be the way to go. As long as I can get a couple of descents in successfully.
Yes. I mean,
it's going to be
that you could climb up and down. You could climb up and rappel down.
Descend, pull it apart, go back up. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. But no, I got all my stuff together. I excitedly put all my broadheads on my arrows, packed them up. I enjoy it, putting your stuff together and doing an inventory of what you got, what you don't. Unfortunately, I had a couple of things that I don't. I don't have my headlamp. I don't have a couple other things. They're left in my turkey tote that's, 90 miles from my house right now in northeast Ohio. It's all good. I got backups. We're going to make this happen. This is going to be a fun trip.
Yeah, I think we're going to have fun. It's supposed to rain a little bit, but I think that might be actually good for deer movement. We might get
deer movement and it's maybe discouraging the average Joe
Yes.
from coming out as well.
Yes, I think that'll definitely be helpful. But what are your what's your mentality? How do you want to attack this weekend? You got what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You have 7 hunts. What do you? How you gonna
Yep.
kill? How you gonna kill a buck in 7 hunts, John? Because I haven't done it yet. Hunter did it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll get lucky. How's that sound? No. um, I've got a couple of, I got that one spot that I'm very excited about. I think one sit is going to be the trek to get back there. It's a super long walk. I think I mentioned on the last podcast, I need one evening sit to get in there, hike in the, when it's light out, kind of scout my way back, see what I could see.
I like that spot so much. Is it that shed you found?
Shed is proof that there is a deer worthy, that would get me excited to shoot. The concentration of white oaks in like a little area. We turkey hunted quite a bit, and I don't think I noticed so many white oaks on one bench within 80 to 80 yards ish.
Yeah.
The bench is but 40, 50 yards in width, but it stretched maybe 60, 70, 80 yards with high concentration of white oaks, and they were mature white oaks. They weren't little guys.
Yeah.
And the fact that there were two, like you said, deer trails that have been there for a while.
Yeah.
You could tell that they were still kind of used.
That's what trails. All these trails I'm hunting up in the hills look like they did during.
It's it's down by us when you see a trail that's often used.
Mud.
The leaves are destroyed.
Yeah.
But I feel like out there, it looks less like that. It looks more like the ground is indented, but you'll have leaves that are flipped over, like somebody walked through.
Yeah.
It's
like a walking.
But it's. I don't know. Yeah. So it was those components all together, with there were beds, there were scrapes, there were rubs on the top of the ridge. I don't think I'm interested in going up there. I'll stay down by the food. I at least want to give it a shot.
Are you worried about winds down there?
It's such a long way back. I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to pick a wind where either I'm walking into it or it's going to be a crosswind coming off the hill.
Yeah.
So down, maybe a variable wind that's calm to 5 miles an hour. I'll jump in there. I'll give it a whirl because I got the creek behind me, and I'm going to hope that all the air will come off that mountainside and just get pulled down away.
I got you. Talking with Hunter, we both kind of saw the same thing too. He said that buck and that doe started moving as soon as that was that night it got really cold, right? As soon as thermals started dropping, right? So imagine those bucks bedded up high and they're getting that updraft all day. They're smelling everything around them. And then boom, those thermals switch. They start dropping down that hill. Well, that buck doesn't want to keep sitting there, right? He's got to get up and move and get somewhere else where he can catch the wind better. And about that time, it's time to eat. So I think if you go in there on like you said, a variable light wind day and you bank on getting back in there because if you get in there at like 3 p.m. and those thermals are rising and it's a calm day, I think you're screwed. But if you get in there, if you plan on getting in there and setting up like as that switch is happening, like 2 hours before dark or something, like it'll be a really long process, short hunt. You know what I mean? But I think
Well, it's a hike to get back there, so that's what it's going to be. It'll be a morning sit somewhere else, and then getting out, traveling, driving to that spot, and then hoofing it,
yeah,
hoofing it in there.
I think it's like if you're walking in, just taking that milkweed, like even the milkweed wasn't really doing well for me. What was doing well was that thermocell. You could see the smoke from the thermocell coming out, and you could watch it straight up. And then when those thermals switched, the smoke was coming out, and it was just dropping like a smoke machine, which was cool. Like, and you would drop the milkweed, and it really wouldn't do what you thought it would do, especially when the thermals were going up. It would just go down because it's got some weight to it. But I think you're monitoring that, and you get back in there and you're like one ridge up, maybe at like 3:30, and you still have that wind sucking up the hill. You just stand there and wait, just stand and wait. And you feel the switch, and then get in there, set up, and you might kill him in 20 minutes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, you never know. Like there's definitely,
I could get skunked.
Well, there's definitely big bucks living over there, right? Just because there's not beans, like everyone wants to focus on beans because there's a lot of beans in Kentucky, but you're going to be down in the Daniel Boone. Those are big woods bucks, dude. Like those bucks.
Yep.
There are bucks that only live there, and they probably don't eat many beans very often. You know what I mean? Because there aren't any for 50
sure.
Miles. So they're in there. They're just there might be one for that 10 square mile area, and he might be on a different ridge that day. But you never know.
He could be. You
never know. So what happens
if I don't try? I'll never know. Right. What happens if you? So I at least got to take.
Absolutely.
My worry is I get all the way back there and it's tore up. Okay? It's tore up. They're in there. And I see a doe. And then I got to get out. Do I go back? Right? That's the decision I have to make.
Do you leave stand in and come for a morning hunt or something? A morning hunt might be tricky there.
I don't like the morning hunt. I think I'll be walking through where they're meandering.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, probably. But
because I'm not coming from the other way and walking even longer to get to his bed before. No.
Yeah.
Maybe if I strike out this weekend and I score in Ohio, come back down for the rut, I will make that long, hard trek the other way, get in his bed, and I'll just sit there all day.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's you got to go for it, man. You got to see. There's a spot.
Got to go for it.
On this public that I'm contemplating on going. It's a super far walk, but I feel like I need to go sit there at least once too. So it's just going to be a nightmare to get to. But
I think that's going to be a Friday evening attack before we get too many hunts in and the effort level goes down.
Yes. Sunday night, you're not going to want to walk 2 miles up that gully and kill a buck and but
we'll see. Hey, we'll see. We'll talk about it. Maybe we'll get energized, Yeah. I foresee not. But
I got one more day of work. I got to work tomorrow, and then I'm off Friday and Saturday and Sunday. So
as do I.
I'm pumped.
All right, man. That sounds good.
Yeah, so short and quick. I just wanted to kind of give everybody an update get some current content out there so they know what we're doing, and we'll do another one of these when we both tag out Friday night. We'll do one Saturday morning out here. So
There it is. Saturday at noon, because we'd be up all night dragging these big guys out of there.
Exactly, right before the Buckeyes play, right?
There you go.
But all right. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for listening. If you're not hunting yet, you're going to be hunting pretty soon. So good luck to everybody. Stay safe out there, and we will see y'all on the next one.